I'm Ezra Levant. It's February 8th, and you're watching Battleground. Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Ezra Levant. I am the president of the Rebel News Network Limited. That's our official name and my official title. I prefer to go by Rebel Commander, just because it's slightly more butch. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, I talk for an hour, and I take your, well, they're not calls, but they're live chats, as you can see on the right-hand box there. It's called Super Chat. That's something that YouTube calls it, because you can chip in a few bucks or a few pounds or whatever your currency is, and your comment is put in a bright highlighted color and appended to the top of the box. It's also a great way to help keep the Rebel strong, because we get 70% of that money. YouTube skims 30%, which seems a little bit high to me. I have in front of me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 video clips, a website, and a headline. So I'm going to try and get through as much of that as I can in the course of the next 59 minutes. And I will try and take as many comments as I can. I have my laptop open right here, so I see out of the corner of my eye if something is brightly colored. So I make a point of getting to every super chat before the day is done. Obviously, I can't answer everything. Paul Ouellette says, is it true Soros was arrested? I have seen that rumor so many places, and the answer is no. He was not arrested, and neither was Barack Obama. And what I say about George Soros, and can you call up my monologue that we put in full on YouTube the other day on Soros? And can you scroll to the part where we have the Trudeau-Soros contract? You know what I'm talking about? What I say to my friends who want to talk about George Soros and who say things like that is I say, look, do not indulge in conspiracy theories. You do not need to. The facts are so astonishing. And I'll show a bit of that, and then I want to show people the George Soros website, the opensocieties.org website. And my point is that the facts about George Soros that he confesses to, let's also get his 60 Minutes clip. So those are three things: the website, the 60 Minutes clip, and just that part from my monologue the other day where I show the contract with the Canadian government. You do not need to fabricate. You do not need to speculate. You do not need to ruminate. You do not need to, I can't finish the Jesse Jackson rhyme there. You don't need to make stuff up when it comes to George Soros, because the truth is so insane. If it was a Hollywood script, the agent would say, "Ooh, overdone, overwritten." There's no such thing as a ex-Jew who collaborates with the Nazis in World War II, becomes a speculator, bets against the British pound and beats the Bank of England, makes $1 billion in one day, but throws millions into poverty. Goes to America, makes even more money, I think he's worth $14 billion, and decides to spend it all on diabolical left-wing extremism, including anti-Israel extremism, I should tell you. People would say, that's too much, that's too over the top. And then when you say, well, his name isn't actually George Soros, it's George Schwartz, Georgie Schwartz. And Soros is a made-up name. His father was an Esperanto aficionado. Do you know what Esperanto is? It is an engineered language. It's a manufactured language for people, not for computers. It's a utopian dream to create a new language, almost like Newspeak in 1984. And it's simultaneously utopian and satanic at the same time, if you believe at all the story of the Tower of Babel, that God saw the hubris of man building a tower to the heavens, and so poof, 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 made the different construction workers speak different tongues, and so they dispersed. Whether or not you believe that's a literal story or a figurative story, it is a fact that mankind is different in nations and languages. It is a hubristic, messianic, utopian arrogance to think, let us have one international language. Let us extinguish English and French and Chinese and Hindi and Spanish and Portuguese and Arabic. Let's wipe it all out. And the history that goes with it, and the cultural knowledge that comes with the language. Let's wipe out all of Shakespeare. Let's wipe out the King James Version of the Bible and replace it with our scientific language. That's insane. And that is who George Soros' father was. Soros is an Esperanto name. Can you even believe that? All right, what do we have? Okay, let's start with the 60 Minutes clip, which I think is the most powerful. Take a look.
I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
In what way?
That one should think ahead, one should understand and anticipate events, and one is threatened. It was a tremendous threat of evil. I mean, it was a very personal experience of evil.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I shouldn't be there, because that was, well, actually, in a funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. In other words, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator, the property was being taken away. So
he later, in one of his biographies, said it was the most exciting time of his life, going around Hungary, pretending to be a young helper-outer boy, assistant, whatever, to a Nazi, expropriating property from Jews. And he himself bicycled around serving death notices on the Jews in Budapest, and they obeyed him, even though he was a teenager. The glee there, you could see he was gaming it. Well, maybe I'd be on the other side. It's just a market. If I didn't do it, someone else would do it. Oh, and by the way, I didn't do it. So, do you see my point about Soros? You don't need to make up stuff. The man is diabolical. What was the second? His website. Yeah, let's put his website up there. So that's a diabolical man with no soul. Here's his website called the Open Society Foundations. And scroll down a little bit. Oh, there we go, right there. George Soros, founder chair. George Soros launched his philanthropic work in South Africa in 1979. Since then, he has given over $32 billion to fund the Open Society Foundations, which work in over 100 countries around the world. So you don't need to speculate. You don't need to make things up with this. Okay, you can take that down now, thank you. He'll tell you. He'll tell you. And you don't need to say, well, can we get a picture of Justin Trudeau with George Soros, and can we get the picture of Ahmed Hassan with Alex Soros? Thank you. And you don't need to speculate about his ties with Canada, because although he is somewhat shy and conscious of media coverage, he's one of the richest men in the world. He doesn't care what you think. He's in his mid-late 80s. He doesn't care what you think. So for example, let's go with the press release, or my video. Let's roll 60 seconds of my monologue showing the contract. Do we have that ready? Okay, go ahead. This one, Canada, UNHCR, and the Open Society Foundation seek to increase refugee resettlement through private sponsorship. Let me read the first line from the press release to you. The Government of Canada, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and the Open Society Foundations, that's Soros' group, have agreed to launch a joint initiative aimed at increasing private sponsorship of refugees around the world. Now, if that's all this was, promoting private refugee sponsorship instead of government refugee sponsorship, I'd be sympathetic to that. I mean, that means local churches could sponsor Christian refugees who are fleeing ISIS ethnic cleansing, for example, and that local church would be committed to paying the costs of the refugee. And probably most important, there will be real live Canadians in the community who would take a personal stake in making sure those refugees are integrated, that they learn English, that they get a job, that they don't go on welfare, that they don't get into crime, that they don't go hive off into a ghetto. But that's not what Trudeau did. In fact, that announcement was in September. But here's a news. Listen, it's a half-hour show. I'm not going to make you watch it right now. But the third point in that contract was that the Open Society Foundation, that's George Soros's front group, and the Canadian government would work together in a new narrative, in a political discussion about refugees, propaganda. Nothing about actually helping people, but about political conditioning for Canada. And as you can find that website yourself on the government website. That's a contract between the government of Canada and George Soros. So to wrap up my 10-minute diversion, you don't need to make stuff up about George Soros. You don't need to speculate. Let's just show those two photos if we've got them. Here's, again, this is not from some fake news site. This is from Justin Trudeau's own official Twitter account. Thanks to George Soros for sharing your insights on the global economic outlook and climate change. So they met in Davos, and look who's sitting, who's in control there? Who's the good boy? Yes, master, yes, master. And who's the old Jedi Knight teaching the young Padawan? And do we have the Alex Soros one? So George Soros, like I say, he's not long for this world. I mean, I'm sure he'll buy whatever life-extending technologies his billions can get him, but he won't be here forever. There's his son, Alex Soros, meeting with Ahmed Hassan, the Somali refugee who now is Justin Trudeau's immigration minister. So that's my very long answer to your question about George Soros. No, he was not arrested, but you don't need to go there. You can just follow the truth. Speaking of world governments and people who think they are godlike, and again, if you've studied Soros as much as I have, you know that he admits, we can maybe find the tape later, we've spent too much time on it right now, he admits he thinks of himself as a god. And when you have spent tens of billions of dollars shaping the world, how can you not? You think, well, people are ants, and there's this ant colony called Ukraine, and there's that ant colony called Hungary, and this ant colony called Canada, and I'm involved in 100 different ant colonies, and I am more than a billionaire, I am more than a master of the universe, I am a god. You even heard a little bit of that come through in that 60 Minutes interview, didn't you? Enough talk about him, but let us move to news very fresh out of Burnaby, BC, which is a suburb in the Greater Vancouver area. Very nice place. I like Burnaby. It has a by-election right now. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the New Democrat Socialists, is running there. The first candidate for Maxime Bernier's People's Party is running there, Laura Lynn Thompson. She's actually a great candidate. We've had her on our show before. The Liberal candidate, Chinese-Canadian woman, was fired from the party by Justin Trudeau very unceremoniously. She's been replaced. And there's a Conservative candidate who I watched and is fairly low energy. But I want to show you a clip from the candidates debate in Burnaby. And I'm going to show you the Liberal. The Liberal candidate talks about the internet, and it's a short clip, it's only about 20 seconds, I'll show it to you. And by the way, I saw that super chat come through, I'm going to get back to that, but let me just play this video first. He wants the internet regulated, and he wants it regulated by the United Nations. Take a look.
Well, I think the power of internet and storage, we are into a new era, and I think United Nations should have a body to regulate those activities. Yeah, I think in it's regulation. Yeah, it's regulation. I think my time is up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you know, he's a better politician than you think. I mean, he said the dumbest thing in the world, and he had been going on about the internet for about a minute before that, so this was not just a misunderstanding or a slip of the tongue. And even in that liberal town, he was getting booed when he said the UN should have a body to regulate the internet. He's very clever. He said, sorry guys, I'd love to stick around and answer more and take your booze more, but you guys got to stop booing me now because my time is up. Can we play that again just because it was so good? It's only about 20 seconds. Take a look.
Well, I think the power of internet and storage, we are into a new era, and I think United Nations should have a body to regulate those activities. Yeah, I think in it's regulation. Yeah, it's regulation. I think my time is up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's normal now in the Liberal Party. Do you think he's going to be rebuked or corrected by his leader, Justin Trudeau? Of course not. I think he might win, by the way. I think that Liberal candidate, Mr. Lee, might well win. What do you think? I see a quick comment just caught my eye. Dave T says, Tommy updates, please, or undates, please. I mean, Tommy doesn't work for us. I still talk to Tommy probably once a week, just out of friendship, and see how he's doing. And, you know, we're curious what he's doing, but we're not going to meddle. You know, he's got his own life. He's got his own videos that he does. He's got his own cameraman and stuff. We really got engaged with his story when he was arrested, thrown in prison, solitary confinement actually, for a trumped-up contempt of court charge. So we got involved, as you know, in two ways. Number one, we crowdfunded his legal defense, and number two, we did a lot of journalism about it. I went over there like 5 times to his different court dates. But that's over, and it ended fairly well. Like, technically, he still could be prosecuted by the Attorney General. I have to say, they are stupid over there, but they're not that stupid. I really don't think that they would prosecute Tommy Robinson from scratch again after he served 10 weeks illegally in solitary. The Court of Appeal just devastated the lower court judge. So that's a long way of saying, I like Tommy. I talk to him probably once a week. I think he's a good egg. I'd say I'm probably closer to him now than I was even when he worked with us, because we had this battle together. But you know what? Some of the things he focuses on are not. You know, I mean, I think he's great, but he's not working for us. He invited me to go over there to join his Brexit demonstration, but I declined. I mean, that's sort of I don't think that's something that a foreigner like me should fly to London and participate in a demo about Brexit. That's sort of the antithesis of Brexit, don't you think? It's a British decision for British people to make. They don't need Canadians there. I felt like we had to help on the contempt of court thing for reasons that you know. But so that's my Tommy update. Let's catch up on these super chats, because a few have come in, and then I've got a bunch more videos. In fact, I've really, other than that video I just showed you, I am so behind because I didn't mean to even do any of that Soros stuff. So let's catch up here. That Alfalfa chips in $10, thanks very much, and says, what do you think of the government shutdown? Sorry if you covered it. Twitter, Wendell Cohen. Well, Wendell, I have covered it. I've spoken about it on my nightly show a couple times with Joel Pollack of Breitbart.com, and I felt that the shutdown was a good idea. It showed that Trump was serious. It was causing serious pressure on the Democrats. I think Trump caved. I don't think he got anything in return. I think it looked weak, and I think it gave a lot of political momentum to the Democrats. I don't really care about momentum and optics if Trump actually got his wall, which was the express reason for the shutdown. Well, it's already midway through February, and we don't have a shovel in the ground. So I have to say that I don't care what the tactic is, using emergency powers, a shutdown, whatever, using the military to build it. Every single day that goes by without a foot of that wall being built is a day where my confidence in Trump is eroded. Now, I'm a Canadian, and as I just said, I have no skin in the game in Brexit. The same could be said about Trump in America. But I support Trump and what he's doing. I think he's going to make America stronger, and in so doing, he'll make the free West stronger, and we're the closest neighbor and ally to America. So that's my lengthy answer, Wendell. Garuda Legends chips in $10 and said, who is going to call out the libs, mainly the LGBTPZ, for saying God is a transsexual? I didn't see that. I don't even know what to say about that. Listen, free speech, right? I mean, you can say crazy things about God being a transsexual because it's just ridiculous, but that's part of freedom. The real challenge, what's really edgy, is try saying Mohammed or Allah are transsexuals. Just try doing that. Try doing that on Twitter and see how long it is before your account is shut down. Try doing that on a radio call-in show, you'll be cut off. Try doing that in a newspaper letter to the editor, it'll never be published. Try doing that in a street protest. Police will come by and charge you with some public order offense. So yeah, in fact, that leads into one of our little stories from the United Kingdom. I forget what town this is, but there's a school that's about 90+% Muslim students. But the teacher, I think it's in Birmingham, which ain't like it used to be, is it? And they have a gay activist as a teacher there. I think his name is Mr. Moffat, going from memory. And Mr. Moffat is teaching what he always teaches in other schools too, what they teach all around the UK and in Canada too. They teach, books like My Two Dads or Heather Has Two Mommies or whatever. That's not even, that's 10 years old now in the West. But they don't much like it in the Muslim schools. And I want to play you a clip. And I've read this story in various newspapers, and I'll give you my thoughts afterwards, but just take a look at this. I guess let me give you one thought now. Imagine that these were not Muslim parents. Imagine they were Christian parents, and then tell me what you think the difference in the press coverage would be. Take a look.
Out and say that this is not acceptable. It's against the Equalities Act. We are on the side of the law. They are outside the law, the school. I in fact think that they have acted.
I think it's better if you control the placards and control the messages.
But as long as we not.
Make your kids make placards. Protest just Thursday, each other.
We held this meeting. It's to do with no outsiders in our school. It's a program that's been developed at Parkfield School over the last 4 years by a gay teacher called Mr. Moffat. And basically, Mr. Moffat's premise is that if you do not believe in homosexuality, you must be homophobic. And on that basis, he's designed this program called No Outsiders. And it is like proselytizing a homosexual way of life through it to young kids in primary school. Now that's changing our children's belief. We want the No Outsiders program to be withdrawn. We want an apology from the school, and we want the school to be investigated as to why this took place. Because a lot of parents were objectionable about it. A lot of parents weren't consulted, and it was done in a very surreptitious manner. We're going to protest, and we're going to try and get our voice out there and tell people that we're not homophobic. We simply don't want our children's belief changed, and we want our community ethos respected.
I've seen this story reported in a number of places, and I've seen it reported at best, at worst, neutrally, like you've just seen it there. I have never, in any coverage, including in secular media, obviously, seen it reported in a way that would criticize these parents as anti-science or anti-sex or bigoted or homophobic. It's just not. And thus you see the semifinals in the grievance Olympics. Olympics, or you could maybe use a poker analogy. If you're a white male, it's like you're playing poker and you got nothing. You got a high card of like an 8. You're going to lose. If you're a woman, that's like having a pair. So obviously it's going to trump a high card of an 8 for a guy. If you're a Jew, that's probably sort of on par with being a woman. If you're black, that's obviously like 3 of a kind, right? Gay trumps black, but Muslim trumps gay. Hey, I didn't make the rules. Don't hate the player. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. What you're seeing there is, if those were Christian, like if that was a male Christian saying that, well, he'd be dead. If that was a female Christian saying that, he'd be dead. If that was a black woman Christian saying that, she'd be dead. But a Muslim man, oh. Now the only question is, in the finals, in the Grievance Olympics, Muslims versus trans, who's going to win that one? I'm going to bet on the Muslims. What do you think? Let's read some more super chats. That alfalfa, I think I read that one already. D. Tyler Dunbrag, do you think anything will come of SNC Lavalin and Admiral Norman cases? Hoping butts will be charged. Thanks for the job your crew does from West Coast. Well, thank you very much for all of that. We don't do enough on the West Coast is actually my thought. I think something has to break. I think they will have some sacrificial lamb. I think they will probably blame some staffer. I don't think they will blame either Katie Telford or Gerald Butts. They're too important to Trudeau's government. I think they'll probably blame some staffer and make him the sacrificial lamb. And I think they will not set Jody Wilson-Raybould free. For those people who are not from Canada, don't understand this, it was revealed yesterday that Justin Trudeau fired his justice minister, who, by the way, was the first Aboriginal justice minister in Canadian history, and a woman to boot. He fired her because she would not call off the prosecution of a corruption case involving his friends in Quebec, a wealthy engineering firm called SNC Lavalin. SNC Lavalin made $48 million worth of bribe payments in Libya. So they were being charged with fraud and corruption. Justin Trudeau pressured her to drop the charges. She wouldn't, so he fired her. Now, she can't speak about it because technically, as the government's lawyer, she's bound by solicitor-client privilege, and he will not waive that for her, which tells you everything you need to know. But Trudeau will not resign, Butts will not resign, Telford will not resign. They'll find someone else to throw under the bus. Tom Youngjohn chips in $2. You afraid to be the 24th Prime Minister of Canada? No, I don't have that ambition. And, of course, I lack the essential ingredient, which is to speak French, which is far more important, history tells us, than actually knowing how to do anything. Super chat, Alex W. Thoughts on ex-Muslim Syrian refugees? Well, I know from observation and report that a lot of fake refugees are coached on what to say. We had this amazing story the other day of a fake refugee who came up from the United States. So right away, there was no possible way he was truly, factually, legally a refugee. But he was coached to say he was gay. I'm a gay Muslim or something, so you gotta let me in. Police not only found that he was a serial criminal, drug dealer, gangbanger, firearms, but his phone was full of like pictures of him having sex with women, and like his whole Tinder app with just women, women, women. And this was all, and the judge saw this. I'm going from memory, I did a whole show on this, and said, well, you've admitted you were lying, and that took a lot of guts, and you're the most honest criminal I've ever met. Welcome to Canada. You know, if you want all the details, you can find it in one of my past shows. So yeah, there's a lot of fake refugees that are coached on what to say. There are actual ex-Muslims who are in jeopardy. There are actual gays who are in jeopardy. But I put it to you that most people who say those things are coached to say that because they know what we'll get through our naive Immigration and Refugee Board judges. But of course, you don't even have to do that because you just walk across the border, they jot your name down, and they give you like a Immigration and Refugee Board court date like 5 years in the future. One person got a court date 10 years in the future. So you're effectively in Canada for good if you're here for 10 years. A couple more super chats. Garuda Legends, I hate to say, but homosexuality and transsexualism is an ideology. I am black. The LGBT are teaching kids about their why do you care what two adults do in the bedroom. The bedroom is not in schools with kids. Well, that's my essential beef with all these radical sex ed programs. Why are you sexualizing children of tender years? There's obviously a place for sex ed. Of course, I think there is. You may disagree. But why are you teaching kids in grade 1 extreme terminology for sexual anatomy? Well, why? Like if you had someone come home from grade 1 and use words like clitoris and vulva, I'm sorry to say, you'd say, who told you that? Oh, at school. What teacher is talking to you that way? You're 6! And then I think it's by grade 3 or 4, I'm talking about the Ontario curriculum, they're taught the 6 genders. Now, I'm not saying that children should never know technical anatomical words, but you're in grade 1. The 6 genders, first of all, that's scientific bunk. It's not true. Second of all, it's a joke. Third of all, can you name the 6 genders? And being gay is not a gender, remember. It's made up. Don't teach that as science. What are you putting that in the head of someone in grade 3? What are you doing? That's my beef with this extreme sex ed. The hypersexualization of kids before they're sexual creatures. What are you doing? And of course, we know in Ontario, this was overseen by the Deputy Minister of Education, Ben Levin, who was later convicted of being a pedophile. Sorry, that's just a fact. Triniazen, $5, says, thoughts on tactical voting between Conservative and People's Party to get the Libs out of office. Well, look, it's splitism. There's no two ways about it. I believe that in every riding in Canada, with the possible exception of Maxime Bernier's own riding in Beauce, the Conservatives will get more votes than the PPC. Now, I could be wrong in Burnaby. I really like that Laura Lynn Thompson, and I think she's doing well. So I think you're going to have a splitism situation all across the country. And if I had my druthers, Maxime Bernier would not have quit the Conservatives. He would have stuck around, been a force within the party to make it tougher and better communicator and better in Quebec and ideologically better. And if and when Andrew Scheer fails, that Maxime Bernier could have picked up the pieces and had all the party infrastructure and had a unified party. I think that by leaving so hastily, he denied himself access to all the assets and infrastructure of the party. He signed himself up for an enormous job, including the risks of how do you vet 338 candidates across the country? How do you even do that? Well, to do that, you have to start with 338 quality nominations. You're not going to get that your first time out. But that's how it is. So to answer your question, I think there's trouble ahead. All right. I think I've covered all the super chats, fellas. Tell me if I'm wrong. Let's get to some more vids. I hear in my ear that I might have missed some, so I'm going to check them right now. Primpal08, do you think Lee might be taking a dive to make sure the NDP keep their ineffective leader in order to help the Liberals in October? And you're speaking, of course, of that candidate who we saw talking about regulating the internet. No, I actually don't think so. I would think that the Liberals would throw the election because Jagmeet Singh is so weak. Having him in Parliament would be a blessing for them. And him losing this by-election could theoretically cause an emergency leadership vote in the NDP. But I think they're going to try and beat him. And I think they might. Just in Time says Lauren Southern got banned from the UK for that. That's exactly right. I forgot about that. She did some Allah is gay or Mohammed is gay street theater, just on the street. And that literally was the reason she was detained at the border and not allowed in the United Kingdom. So yeah, don't joke. Keith McIntosh chips in 50 pesos, Mexican pesos. What was the final result of the lawsuit against Canadian Cynic in regards to his slander against Rebel Media during the Fort McMurray fires? Well, that's a very good question, Keith. I haven't talked about it publicly because the matter is still before the courts. So it is not resolved yet. So to answer your question, there is no final result. But there have been 2 interim rulings, and I have been successful in both of them. You can find them online by going to Canlii, CANLII.org, and searching for my name. Tom Youngjohn, Trump didn't cave, 4D chess. Well, everyone keeps saying that. They sure do say that. It feels like caving. 2 years into his presidency and not 1 inch of wall has been built. That feels like caving. I want to have one last comment about Jagmeet Singh because I'm sure that he is of very little interest to most people and of no interest to anyone outside of Canada. But I just want to show you this clip of when he was asked about Venezuela. Venezuela is a tough one. Can we get the images of the bridge with Colombia blocked? Just Venezuela-Colombia bridge, humanitarian. We had a reporter down there for a couple of days. Her name was Annika Rothstein. She's a freelancer. We paid her a few bucks to do some videos. They were great. You can find all our videos at rebelvenezuela.com. And one of her videos was very sad. It was people in a dumpster looking for food. And you might say, well, you could find that in any city in Toronto, San Francisco, whatever. Yeah, and in Venezuela, they're so poor, they're so malnourished, the average Venezuelan has lost nearly 20 pounds. From starvation, over 100,000 refugees fleeing what was once the 4th richest country in the world, now impoverished. So there's this massive international humanitarian wave. Of course, America is part of it, but look at this. Venezuela military sets up blockade on bridge to stop aid from Colombia. They have barriers to stop the aid, not to stop a soldier invasion, to stop food coming in, because that would be an admission that their people are starving. Hey, if you don't have a humanitarian aid, that proves you don't have a humanitarian crisis. No aid, no crisis, right? I mean, if there was a crisis, there'd be aid. This was the front page of about a dozen different newspapers across Latin America. It was utter proof of how tyrannical Nicolas Maduro is. Have you seen this image before? If you're Canadian, I doubt you have. Without further ado, let us put to you Jagmeet Singh, the leader of Canada's socialists, when asked about whose side he's on, Nicolas Maduro, the tyrant who is blocking humanitarian aid to his starving people, or Juan Guaido, who, by the way, is also a socialist, I should tell you, but at least he's a Democrat and he's not a brutal dictator. I think that's a pretty easy question to answer. Under Venezuela's constitution, Guaido is the legitimate ruler of the country. Most democracies who have weighed in on the subject agree, including the United States and Canada. But what does Canada's socialist leaders say? Take a look at Jagmeet Singh.
Yeah, so I should make it clear. We've got 3 main points when it comes to Venezuela. First off, there's a humanitarian crisis going on of epic proportion. People are really desperate right now. There's a serious crisis going on. Food shortages, lack of access to medication, and there's also Amnesty International confirms some serious and grave human rights violations being perpetrated by the Maduro government. What we believe very strongly is any decision about the future of Venezuela should be in the hands of the Venezuelan people. And our role as Canadians and as a government, as a country, should be one, to make sure that people on the ground receive the aid that our government has committed to. They actually go to people and lift people up and help them out in this dire situation. And secondly, we do everything possible to support the Venezuelans in their pursuit of having free and fair democratic elections that assure that their voice and their representation is their choice.
Who's the president of Venezuela?
Or whoever the people of Venezuela decide.
Yeah. So you're not taking a position?
I'm taking the position that the people of Venezuela have a sovereign right to make that decision, and it's our job to support the people of Venezuela in making that decision.
Okay, so Guaido has declared himself as the president. Do you recognize that?
again, I mean, I've already answered. I believe very strongly that the people of Venezuela have the right to make that decision, and our job as the international community is to support that right and that ability to have free and fair democratic elections.
So how will you know when they've made that decision? Another election?
The people will decide.
Oh my God, that is painful. You know, remember when Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate of the United States, was asked about Aleppo? Can we get that clip? What's Aleppo? Aleppo is a city in Syria, and it's not that big. It's you know, the whole state of Aleppo has a few million people in it, but the city proper, I'd have to dig it up. The capital city is Aleppo. I just want to, and I'm looking this up because I want to. I think it's relevant. Okay, it's a city of 1.8 million, so it's actually pretty big. I take it back that it's a small city. I think, in fact, it's the second largest city in Syria. Gary Johnson, do we have that clip? He was asked about Aleppo because there was a humanitarian crisis there in the civil war, and take a look at what he said.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo?
About
Aleppo.
And what is Aleppo?
You're kidding.
No.
Aleppo is in Syria. It's the epicenter of the refugee crisis.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Okay.
Well, with regard to Syria.
You know, I love that. I think he thought it was Aleppo. A space L-E. If someone said, what do you think about Aleppo? What's Aleppo? But he didn't know it was the name of a city. And everyone said, oh, are you serious? How can you not know what Aleppo is? I think the answer is, because there's no real reason why someone running for president of the United States should know what Aleppo is. That's sort of a philosophical academic debate to 99.999% of Americans. Who cares about Aleppo? Okay, there's a humanitarian crisis there. Yeah, I can name 20 other cities too. Is that really the number one thing of issue in America or Canada? Can you find Mali on a map? Can you find Aleppo on a map? Can you find Syria on a map? No Googling. I'm pretty sure you can't. Mali. Canada has sent peacekeepers to Mali. Can you find Mali on a map? No cheating. Tell me the truth. If I gave you a blank map, you probably know what continent it's on. But could you locate it? I know you couldn't. Why would you? That would be weird if you put aside everything less important in life, more important, whatever, and I'm going to study where Mali is. But it's different because Venezuela, it's a political crisis right now that the left has always held up as one of their ideals. And if you're running for the leader of a country and other countries are being asked, so which side are you on? I think you ought to know. I think it's more important than Aleppo. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm trying to make a distinction where there is none. But he clearly had no clue. Because, of course, you got Nicolas Maduro and you've got Juan Guaido, and they both say I'm the legitimate leader. And I think the journalists were trying to say, well, how do you determine? Well, the people will decide. Okay, well, the people are split. Well, the people will decide. How will you know when they decide? Well, they'll decide when they'll decide when they'll decide. He should have just said, what's Venezuela? At least that would have been more honest. Points to Gary Johnson for being honest. I wish Jagmeet Singh were more honest. He just didn't know. Triniazin says, would a coalition seem likely? I don't think you're going to see. I think you're talking about the PPC and the CPC. I don't think you're going to see a coalition. LC chips in $50. I know that you are a humble man, but I think you are a true Canadian hero. Thank you for the rebel. Well, it's very nice of you to call me a humble man. I don't know how true that is, but I'll take the compliment. I'm extremely humble. I'm amazing at being humble. I'm huge. Thanks for that. Okay, it's, I've spent so much time just kibitzing. I want to show you what happened to our David Menzies yesterday. We talked about refugees, we talked about George Soros. talked about that Muslim school in Birmingham. So there's a hotel called the Radisson Toronto East. And you can go to that website, radissontorontoeast.com. And I'm the proud owner of that website, by the way, because it forwards to this video. My friend and colleague David Menzies went to radissontorontoeast.com yesterday, and this is what happened.
Oh, I didn't know. Is this your? We're on the parking lot. Okay.
It's private property. Please get off.
Oh, okay then. Would you like to come on camera?
No, I would not. I would like you off
off
our property right now. I'd like you to stop taking my picture.
Hey, excuse me.
Take your
Hey.
Get your rebel crap news out of here right now.
Why is it rebel crap news, sir?
Get out off our private property. I'll call the police.
Good, and then you'll be charged with assault for what you just did.
Take my picture without my permission.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting.
It's not funny. It's not funny. Now, I'm laughing because David was not hurt, obviously, he's a big boy. And our videographer, Ephraim, was not hurt either. I think they were startled by it. Wouldn't you? Why were they there? Why were they there? It's a hotel. It's called the Radisson Toronto East. If you don't believe me, go to radissontorontoeast.com. It is no longer really a hotel because it's for refugees. It has turned into an urban refugee camp. And what was so powerful and poignant about David's report is he contrasted these foreign illegal immigrants being put up in this lovely hotel, I wouldn't call it lovely anymore, with domestic homeless people in Canada who are living under bridges and streets in the bitter cold. And it was a very, very touching piece, actually. And they were just outside this radissontorontoeast.com and just filming. And that manager came out and just shouted at them. And he really hurt my feelings. I mean, I don't think he hurt David and Ephraim physically, but he hurt my feelings by saying rebel crap news. And this is my own what's Aleppo moment. What's rebel crap news? What do you mean? Do you mean that in a nice way? Like, what does that mean? I don't know, but I'm going to try and find out. Michael Lindor says, small support for the fights ahead until I get more. Well, thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate that. I thought that was great TV. But of course, I don't like our people being attacked, and so we are taking legal steps. You know why? Because number one, you can't punch someone you disagree with. You can't do that. Even if you're liberal and they're conservative, you're not allowed to punch people. We're civilized people. We don't do that. We don't punch. Second of all, I know they weren't hurt, but that's not the point. The point is, out of self-respect, you cannot attack our people, and we have to show self-respect, and we have to show respect for our staff. Do you want to get dionviews.com? When my dear friend Sheila Gunn Reid attended the Women's March some 2 years ago, and some male feminist punched her. Stupidly, like, what's with these stupid leftists punching someone with a rolling camera? You know you're on tape, right? Like high def. Yeah, go to the very first raw video there. So yeah, find the thug will do. Or the one that says raw, a little bit further down. Yeah, click on that one. Can we get sound up for that, obviously?
Ezra, fuck you.
Okay, so wouldn't you say that it would be feminine? No, I'm just asking you a question. Do I seem unreasonable to you? Because they seem really pleasant. Am I coming across as pleasant right now, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just trying to have a conversation here.
I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
Go away. Get out of my fucking face. I will break your camera. You do not have the right to.
Whoa!
Guys, let's stop. Let's calm down. Calm down.
You don't have the right to film me everywhere you go.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, I do. You just hit me in the face. No, don't tell me to calm down.
I'm not
that
telling
guy
you.
You guys should move away.
You deserve to be angry. You deserve to be angry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
wizardry.
nothing.
No, don't get it between me. Get it between me. That guy, I'm a feminist. That guy just hit me in the face.
Watching a movie.
Doesn't matter. Do I deserve it? Yeah, I'm the problem. you victim blamer? That guy just hit me in the face.
You have footage of it? You have
Yeah,
footage of it?
exactly. And I'm going to security next.
Good. Go do that, okay? I'm just trying to make sure nothing happens and it doesn't escalate, okay? Let's take a minute. Get security.
So many things about that make me angry. Number one, obviously, he's a male feminist who punches women at a women's march. Typical socialist. His name is Dion Buse. DionBews. Of course, I own DionBews.com, and for the rest of his life, DionBews.com will point to that video. The fact that the women at the women's march immediately escort him away, sort of swallow him up to block anyone from following, and tell Sheila to calm down. And that one woman, I'm just here to make sure nothing escalates. What the hell are you talking about? Police were involved. We identified him pretty quick. We put up a $1,000 reward for his identity. You have no idea how many of his friends and family wrote in to try to collect the reward. Of course, we only paid it out to the first person. It's quite something when your own friends and family despise you so much that they're willing to sell you out for $1,000. You gotta admit, that's funny. It's the one funny thing about this. There's not a lot else funny about it. We had him prosecuted in criminal court, but there was a bit of a failure in the justice system there. We were not advised of the date. The video was not seen by the judge. Sheila didn't have a chance to make a victim impact statement. There was a bit of a miscarriage of justice. He was convicted, of course, but he got a very light punishment. So we prosecuted him in a civil lawsuit. We sued him for another year in civil court. And that, we got our justice, and we won, and we got an award against him, and we collected. And for the rest of his life, his name, Dion Buse, will be synonymous with a cowardly male feminist who punches women. And that's why DionBews.com, for the rest of his life, will point to that disgraceful moment, which is his essence, don't you think? And this middle manager at this RadissonTorontoEast.com, which I will likely own for the rest of my life, is not as disgraceful as Dion Buse. He didn't punch a woman. He didn't cause the same harm, but he did punch someone. And I don't think it should be, I don't think you punching a man should be less illegal than punching a woman. And yeah, I think it's a similar offense. So I'm not 100% certain of this manager's name. If you know it, let me know. I think I know it. I want to confirm it because we will be taking legal steps both criminally and civilly, because the world must know you cannot do this to the rebel. And if I were punched in the face, even if it didn't really hurt, would I just let it roll? Maybe David and Ephraim would let it roll. I don't know. I mean, maybe they would. But I'm not going to let it roll on their behalf. Surely I must fight as hard for them as I would for myself. Otherwise, what kind of a team is this, right? So, in fact, we're going to have a meeting to that effect. This just happened yesterday. I didn't even know about it until I saw the video was up. Can you even believe that? Okay, let's read some more. Primpal08 says leftists don't seem to understand that cameras actually capture assaults. Yeah, it's so weird. Tom Youngjohn, apprendre le français. Listen, I know a little bit of French, but you know, in my life I got so many things going. I'm not going to learn French. I'm 46. I'm not running for office. At least I don't think that's going to happen in any hurry. I got other things I'm doing. MB chips in £5. My respect for you. Rocketed after your support of Tommy Robinson. Here's a $5 for the weekend. Don't spend it all at once. Well, thank you very much. You know, I really enjoyed my visits to the UK. Obviously, the reason I went there was an unhappy reason, but I really felt like it was a fit for the rebel. It's like you're a strangely shaped puzzle piece, and you find a strange shape that you fit perfectly. Did that metaphor work? And what are we good at doing here at the Rebel? Well, we're good at some things, not at others. But helping Tommy through crowdfunding, doing the kind of alternative journalism, telling the other side of the story, getting that journalism out around the mainstream media, it really was a perfect fit for us, I think. I thought it was really to me, it was the highlight of 2018 for the Rebel journalistically. We did a lot of great coverage. We were active in many different countries. We have journalists, as you know, since, by the way, the Rebel turns 4 years old exactly next week. Did you know that? February 15th will be our 4th anniversary. Can you believe it? We have had reports from India, Iraq, Israel, Morocco, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, London, Poland, Mexico, all over the United States, of course, all over Canada, of course, Australia, Venezuela. That's a lot of coverage. And I'm Holland, France. I can't remember if we were in Belgium. Did I say Sweden? So much coverage. So yeah, it's. But I really enjoyed our work for Tommy, and I'm glad it wound up. When we said goodbye to Tommy a year ago, we unhooked with him, and that's never fun. It wasn't hostile, but it's like breaking up with someone, But the fighting with him, for him afterwards, even when he was independent, I thought that was a really good. It was a personal. Not that we needed to reconcile, but I think our friendship, strangely, is stronger now than even when he worked with us. Maybe that's not strange, actually. George kicks in $10, says, always happy to help the Rebel. Thanks very much. Michael Lindorf, okay, now you have the middle manager to get to. Not much, but at least you might be able to buy a Starbucks on the way to court. Yeah, thanks very much. Listen, I have no doubt it's stressful working at that urban refugee camp. But you can't take it out on a public interest journalist who's not doing anything wrong. You can't punch him. And even if you are kicking him off hotel property, you can't just walk up right to a guy and punch him in the nose and say, "Got off." You can't do that. That's not how it works. It's 12:56, which means I have time for just one more thing. And sort of all of them are sort of about Justin Trudeau. I don't want to get into those because we don't have time to cover it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold up my piece of paper that has the rest of our video clips, put it aside, and I'm just going to, for the next 4 minutes, I'm going to take your chats. So I see another one come through from Tom Youngjohn, who says, short interviews with French-speaking conservatives. We had a French department at the Rebel called Le Rebelle.media. It lasted a little bit. For various reasons, it didn't move forward, but we have, I don't know if there's a big enough market to sustain it, but I think we overexpanded in 2017. I think 2015, we were just trying to figure out how to do a company. 2016, we really, really grew, and part of our growth was our coverage of Donald Trump. We were, other than Conrad Black, we were the only journalists in Canada who supported Trump, and our videos really went viral. 2017, I think we overexpanded. We opened offices in Sydney, Australia, London, or Luton, UK, and it would have made sense to expand at that rate, but that coincided with the great demonetization on YouTube, so that really took all the dough out of the company, and we had to find other ways to survive. How can I not play the Miles McInnes clip? Oh my God! Pat Bennett chips in $10. Thanks very much. How can we have missed that, guys? Miles McInnes, play the vid.
I'm every woman, it's all in me. Anything you want done, baby.
Sponsored by Gillette. Oh, you cut it off too quick. That was the funniest part. Did you see that? It said sponsored by Gillette at the end. I want to let you know that Gavin McInnes, who was another one of our Rebel personalities, Rebel alum, and we didn't fire Gavin. He got hired away, as you might recall. About 18 months ago, CRTV made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And I talked to Gavin about it. I mean, someone offers you this much dough. Just if you have a family, you got to take it. You got to follow the buffalo, so to speak. You got to do what's right for your family. So I was disappointed that he took the offer for my own sake, but I would have taken it too. George says, always happy to help the Rebel. Thank you. Now, of course, we would never hire Gavin back because of his toxic masculinity. So we're hiring his twin brother, Miles, as a form of reparations. And as we say in the little description under that video, it's a form of reparations for all the bad things Gavin said. And we've agreed to pay Jur, I don't even say him, it's Xi and Jur. So Xi's asked us to pay Jur 73 cents on the dollar of what we paid Gavin as in solidarity. Because he's, you know what? Miles McInnes is really Dion Buse. Am I right? A male feminist. Although I've never seen Miles hit a lady. And that's the essential male feminist move to sexual misconduct, whether it's Justin Trudeau groping Rose Knight in Creston, BC in 2000, or Harvey Weinstein or Jian Ghomeshi punching women in the face. Oh, but he was a women's studies major, so it's okay. My clock says 1 p.m. I appreciate you joining us. I got through some video. I took 15 minutes on George Soros that I didn't mean to do, but there's always so much to say about him. I'm going to sign off now, and I'll probably have more news for you next week about this RadissonTorontoEast.com incident. Because, are you with me? That you shouldn't just be able to punch someone because you disagree with them. I just think for moral reasons, you got to take a stand on that. All right, folks, that's it. If you want to tune in, I've got a show every weekday at 8 p.m., including tonight. I got more for you there. Until then, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.